Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order. We have, sorry, one of the delegations isn't here. Okay. So are we still going to proceed with that delegation then, or we'll leave it off? Your mic's not on. We'll leave it on, and then if they show up. Okay. Okay, so we have an agenda in front of us. Is there any changes to the agenda? Councillor Ferguson.
I do have one addition. So under 9C personnel, FOIP section 17.
Sorry, with these partitions, Bryce can't hear you. What's 9C?
9C personnel, FOIP section 17.
Okay. Anything else? As I see nothing, Councillor Busk.
They can make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Okay, so we'll pass on the first delegation. We'll jump into the second one, which is on page 13 of our package, Dog Island Brewery. And so their delegation is here if you want to introduce yourself. And Joanna, we need to make sure that mic is on there.
I'm Kennedy. I'm representing Dog Island Brewing.
And the floor is yours. Open to
perfect.
whatever you want. We'll ask some questions at the end. Sorry.
Yeah, so we are planning on expanding our taproom brewery to include a kitchen. It's something we've always kind of had on the back burner, wanted to do. Obviously, it's difficult. We know that. So we have been in the works. We have a kitchen that was already in the building. We modified it to meet AHS code. So now we're just waiting for approval. The problem here is we are light industrial. As we started in the Grizzly building, we were a electrical company. Over the years, we've kind of taken over, changed. We're light industrial. With a kitchen, we need to move into commercial. So that obviously is a lot of work. We know that. It's 2 plans on here. We already paid the $1,000 for the land use bylaw amendment. So in total, we're paying $3,000 for the possibility of a no. We don't know, like we can't say we think we're in good hands, but $3,000 is a very large chunk of money. For a small business, a business in general, a business that's been, you know, as everyone else has, 2 years in a pandemic, we're going through, it's a lot of money to fork out. Not saying that we don't want to pay it like all, we will. We understand that it is a lot of work, a lot of paperwork in it. We just have a very hard time swallowing a $3,000 bill. Again, with the possibility of a no. So we're asking for an amendment, a waive of a fee, some fees, anything really to help us to get a kitchen started. It's a lot of money just to put into that alone. And then on top of it, for this is just very hard.
Okay. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Brando.
Just for Sam, the full price is 3,000, right? Not 2,000?
It is a full price for the amendments that they're coming forward to ask you is 2,000.
Because they've already paid the 1,000. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, I was confused when I was reading the report, so thanks.
And just for process for my own thing. So in the past, we have delegations come forward and then we would issue a report if that's what council wants to do. You guys have prepared a report already. which is fantastic. But the idea is, because the way this agenda reads here, whatever else, that we would hear then from planning and development right after. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. Okay. Councillor Ferguson.
So just refresh me here. As a condition of your liquor license, you're mandated to serve food, right?
Yes, so we are a Class A, which means we can serve any products that we produce with a light modified menu.
Okay.
So it's very light. Right now we have chips, nuts and bolts, pepperoni, cheese, really nothing of substance. So, I mean, honestly, even in like the whole scheme of things, the safety of everything, it is better for us to have full meals or even just like larger snacks, appetizers than that.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor King.
How soon were you looking to do this?
We already have our kitchen AHS approved. I'm not gonna yeah, tomorrow would be great. I know that that's not reasonable and not possible. A month, 2 months, really, as soon as we can get it off the ground would be better.
And so the process here for council, just so we're aware here, is that, so they've submitted an application for a change of zoning to a commercial use. That still has to go through a regular process. So they're booked for, I want to say in October to come. A public hearing has to go through. And that process is ongoing. What they're asking for today is that, basically we've done the process. We've submitted all the information. We'd just like a reduction in fees. Councillor Graham-Luck.
I have a question more for Sam, I think. So they have to do the paperwork kind of 3 times for 3 different amendments?
It is a simple form, yes.
So the paperwork that they do is 3 times, but it's for 3 different plans.
So is it pretty copy and pasty?
Well, I think we'll come back to Sam's questions thereafter.
Okay.
Any other last questions for Kennedy there before we jump into planning and development stuff? Going once, going twice. Okay. Thanks, Kenny. We'll hear from them now, and you're more than welcome to stay and listen.
Thank you.
So Sam, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I brought forward a report, and this is to render a decision with regards to the request from Dog Island Brewing to waive the plan amendment fees for the redistricting amendments to the MDP and to the Southwest Area Structure Plan. This would equal $2,000. Sorry, I'm just realizing there's a part here that doesn't apply. Anyways, the planning department has been working with this company to make commercial business work in an industrial area for some time now. Dog Island Brewing originally came in for a permit to brew and package beer from the current site in 2016. In 2017, we found out that they had been actually had a tasting room with the sale of liquor from the site. And then they came forward wanting to expand the operation from about 36 hectoliters annually to 2,000, which was quite a jump. And then realizing what the applicants had been doing and what the larger operation that originally permitted, we didn't have an adequate use in our land use bylaw. And so the planning department brought forward an application to council to add that use without collecting fees or requiring Dog Island to make an application. After that bylaw was passed and their permit was approved for the expansion, Dog Island Brewing came back to planning wanting to add a patio at that time. And so in May, they paid their one and only amendment fee brought forward. And this was supported by the Planning and Development and the MPC to approve patio uses as of July 10th, 2017. So in 2019, Dog Island Brewing came back and asked for an addition to their patio and to add a pergola to the area. This business continues to grow and has been quite successful in their present site. And that said, they wish to add to their roster by now providing food. Restaurants in industrial districts do not make good planning sense. So this means another amendment has to be made. And this, unfortunately, is not just an amendment to the land use bylaw, but rather to 3 statutory plans. So in communicating with Ms. Ball about the added use, the planning department recommended that the Dog Island Brewing rezone the properties as we cannot support adding restaurants to the light industrial district. The fees for amendments are set appropriately to recoup a portion of the costs for changing these plans. In 2015, the planning department looked at 6 other communities and the fees for all services that the planning departments offer. And at that time, our fee of $1,000 per plan was the second lowest at the 6 municipalities that we looked at. Other places had the lowest fee as of $1,500 and as high as $3,000 per plan to amend. Each amendment takes a lot of time to review the plan and then to produce multiple reports to council and to the Municipal Planning Commission. So these fees are in part to cover the cost of preparing and approving amended bylaws. Each plan amendment report takes anywhere from 12 to 35 hours to write, depending on research needed and the complexity of the amendment. For each plan amendment, there's a minimum of 3 reports to write. And then there is the time we pay for the Municipal Planning Commission and Council to have these meetings to review these reports. All of this time adds up and is costly. If the applicants want to amend statutory plans, it should come at their expense and not the expense of all taxpayers. The amendments typically affect only the applicant, especially in a rezoning application. And so it is our recommendation that council require that they pay the full fee.
Okay. Questions, comments from council? Okay, Councilor McGregor.
Okay, Sam, so let me give you all the things that I think I hear.
Okay.
Changing from light industrial commercial will encompass Dog Island Brewery to be able to serve food in a restaurant style.
Yes.
Okay. Changing, so you need to change 3 plans. So I know, I think that this would be a great exercise for a new council coming on and putting this into November when they go into budget to re-looking at all planning department fees and giving you guys some time to be able to look through them, get comparisons, not put the pressure on in October when it's crazy right now and we're making decisions probably not on the best of our ability and more on politics. So I would like to see that the planning department or the next council actually go through all of the planning department fees along with budget and give them a good chance to dive into numbers, budget, and have a good look for the community as a whole if our numbers are too high or too low and where they could be adjusted. Which, I mean, leaves Dog Island in a little bit of a lure for the next month or 2, but I do believe that we already are going to have another group coming looking for some fees. It's coming that time of year. You can guarantee there's going to be 1, 2, maybe even 3 looking before this council changes to come and get fees waived. Doesn't set a good precedence, doesn't leave a good tone for the rest of the taxpayers. So that would be my recommendation, is that we leave this into November for the next council to relook at it with budget, giving that would be a month of time, would give you and the director of finance some time. And we'll also make sure that we have adequate staff in place in case that we don't. So I would like to, that would be my 10 cents.
Okay. Other comments from council? Councilor King.
I agree with, definitely agree with not setting this precedence for the upcoming council. I can see group after group coming forward and with a new council, they have a lot to learn. They have fees to go through. So I kind of like the idea of the new council going through all the fees also.
Okay. Other comments? Councilor Busk.
So over the last number of years with this business, have they requested waiving of fees for the rest of the changes that they've done, or have they always paid the fees as requested?
There's only been 1 fee that they requested. The other amendment that was made, I believe that Laura came to a compromise with them and put forward the amendment for them without collecting fees because we were bringing a housekeeping bylaw forward.
Okay. Councilor Grommack.
I think reviewing the fees is a great idea, but that doesn't help a local business trying to accomplish something right now. And we're on year 4 of this council, so let's not worry about month 1 of the next council. I think we should make a motion of what we want to do and let this business proceed with their activity.
And so I'll weigh in and say ditto. So first off, parking Dog Island's application, looking at it from a process side. I'll start by saying that basically the reason that it's $3,000 is because we have to do 3 plans. And so, from administration standpoint, it's a scenario where it's a lot of work. Not discounting that at all by any means. But at the end of the day, we have a vision statement that says we're committed to building opportunities and growing business. And so we literally have a business that's coming to us and growing exponentially faster than a lot of other businesses in town. And currently we're a little bit of a roadblock to that. And so I would say that if it's one of the pushbacks is going to be that, it's a lot of administration's time. Totally get that 1,000,000%. But even on this at $1,000 per plan, it's not a cost recovery thing that we're doing already. So the question becomes, are we trying to generate money from doing this? Or are we trying to grow business? We have to pick one, in this scenario, we're kind of doing both. The other thing is the average business that's coming and with all the other complexities that they have to deal with, they don't really care that we have to amend 3 of our own plans. It's part of our own planning process. They don't even get that. It's not easy and straightforward. And so one of the things I would say is that if we're going to look at fees, I would also look at the process to say, like, if you're doing this, it triggers one thing and not 3 and confuses the business. Like, if we're committed to customer service, we're committed to helping business and growing business, if there's an opportunity to simplify that process, I think that's where we should concentrate our efforts. And so I totally agree with having future councils look at that amendment to that piece. But I would say not only do I want them to look at the fee structure, I also want them to look at the process. And I would encourage planning and development to say, is there an easier way for a business to come in and what we do behind the scenes? Because realistically, 90% of what we do behind the scenes, they don't know, understand, and we don't try to explain all that to them anyway. Why don't we just have a one thing, it amends these pieces, this is the cost, and away you go. But I would encourage administration, if we're trying to do it from a cost recovery standpoint, we're likely not charging enough anyway. And so I would rather have applications come. I want to see businesses grow. Like, that's a whole big part of half of the people that are sitting here, and what, our number one thing on our economic, our plan was economic development. And so that one piece, I would say that needs to happen. From the council perspective, though, I will say, like, as much as we'll say, like, the next council can deal with it, that's great. But like the council's going to get elected in October, they got to get sworn in. They've got training they have to do. There's convention and things that have to go on. They're not going to be talking budget until December at the very least. And so it's not going to be something that these guys are going to be dealing with right away. And so then a business then has to wait while we do that. And I don't necessarily agree with that. So first off, totally support having that discussion about a future council looking at the fees. Totally support that administration. Like, let's look at the whole process. Is there some tweaks we can do to make it easier there for businesses? Totally recommend to our administration, don't look at it at a cost recovery. Look at it as, are we stimulating business? And that should be, kind of the space we play in. Then from today, I would say that I don't think it's fair to any business, whether it's Dog Island or whether it's somebody else that's sitting here today, to have to wait 2 or 3 months for the new council to make a decision. I think we need to make a decision on that today. And so that's where I would play. To be honest, I think to waive it totally sends a wrong message. It sends a wrong precedent. But I think from a partial thing to say, hey, we're trying to encourage business, we're showing that growth. They've come to us multiple times. They've paid multiple other fees. They went through this process. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's what we're all trying to accomplish here. My 2 cents. Councillor King.
I agree with you as well. I think our costs are very low as it is. And I think we are barely just cost recovery, not necessarily on planning's time, but on the MPC part's time. We have to pay for MPC meetings. And that is a cost I don't think should be put on the general public. I mean, part of planning is doing these reports. So cost recovery, yes, but I do struggle with that because there is costs above and beyond that we have to pay for. If it goes further than MPC, then we also have SDAB costs to cover. So cost recovery, as like, I would like to not cost the taxpayers any more money on that aspect.
Okay.
I just like to weigh in here. So annually, the fees are reviewed. So, and the prior planning and development director was very diligent on reviewing fees annually. We did have those discussions in the impact to budget. And we certainly can have those discussions again during the next budget season as to the impact of waiving fees outright that would have on the budget.
Okay. Councillor Brandel.
I'll play. Yeah, no, I do think that they should be reviewed by council because I don't think we've done that since right after the fire where we did the odd one here and there, but I don't know that we've looked at every single fee that we have in the planning department. So I think that's a good exercise. But I don't want to hold this business up in the meantime while we regroup and get our stuff together. And yeah, December is asking too much for the business for sure. So yeah, I'd like to see it done separately.
Mhm.
But as for the amendment, nobody's thrown any dollar amounts out today. So I'm going to say, why don't we propose that we give them half price, and instead of paying $3,000 total, we go half and $1,500 total. So it's $500 an amendment.
Okay. Other questions, comments, Councillor Busk?
I think Councillor Gramick was starting to ask you this question, Sam, but is there a lot of repetition between the plans? Like when you give us one of these reports, are they 80% the same, 90% the same, or they're totally different?
So the municipal development plan is the overarching plan, and that's the big high vision area plan. And then there's the area plan that specifically speaks to a certain area of town. And then there's a land use bylaw that specifically speaks to each lot. They are totally different.
Okay, so it is 35 hours per work, per plan to get done. So that's not cut and paste. It's all new. We're not going to see the same information. When you bring us all three plans, each plan is going to be different. There'll be no similarities between the
Because
three.
they're different plans and they speak to different things. So absolutely.
Okay. So to be clear too, to talk about taxpayer costs and so on and so forth, like staff time is staff time, right? We're not recouping that. It's built into the cost of our operation, correct?
It's part of the tax base, but part of lowering that general taxation fee for everybody is recouping costs such as development permits and fees. And
We used to have to pay to advertise in the newspaper. So there was a cost that went with that, but now we do our own internal advertising.
that is part of, yeah.
So the
ongoing
real
budget.
over and above cost comes from the fact that we pay some of the MPC members, general public members to attend. Right? Okay.
And maybe postage when we have to alert landowners
Okay.
adjacent, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, we're still proposing to recoup some of that. Okay. Okay. Other questions, comments? Closest thing I heard to a motion was Councillor Brandel's.
Okay, I'll put that into the form of the motion.
Feel free.
I will make a motion that planning department amend the fees for the amendments that they require.
I just make a friendly suggestion and just have, instead of having that the council requires them to pay the full amount, and rather than say to pay 1,500 of the full amendment fees.
Right, because we're not going to change the fee structure at this point. We're just talking about waiving these partial fees. So-
Right, yeah, sorry. I was reading the recommendation, not the motion, sorry.
Okay. So motion would read that council requires Dog Island to pay $500 per plan amendment to a maximum of $1,500. That's the motion. And then I would say that we do another motion for asking administration to look at the fees and what we do after budget. So let's just start with that one. So any further discussion on that motion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. So next, the thought was a motion would read something to the fact that we task administration to bring back a fee structure bring back a report on the fee structure for planning and development, as well as any recommended changes to process to make it easier for development applications. And I'll make that motion. Any discussion on that? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Okay, let's jump into next one. We have another delegation on here from IVW Holdings. And so if they want to come forward and state your name.
Ingo von Wackelberg.
The floor is yours, Ingo, to say whatever you want. Go through. We've got the information that you have sent to us already, and we'll ask any questions.
Yeah, so regarding 312 Balsam, the attached tax roll number, I paid the check, or paid the bill June 21st, put it in the mail with the same way I do any other check. When I returned from holidays and went through the pile of paper, I'd received a late notice, I guess, with the interest tacked on. So I brought the check to the front desk, brought a replacement check, and that's when she told me I had to go through this process. So somehow it's been lost or didn't make it. I don't know. And
so to be clear, the original check never did show up in anyone's thing?
That's correct. Yeah, that's what I have a copy. I think
yeah, we have a copy of it. Yeah.
And then, so I'm just.
And so the request is that council basically waive the late payment fees on your tax roll account.
Yeah, and then it should be square because I paid it right.
Okay.
That's pretty simple.
And so we've already received the check and processed. It's just the outstanding fees that are still in the account.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions, comments from council? Councillor McGregor.
So Roland, this looks like a human error just on our part.
Or the mail, I should.
Like the mail, Canada Post, we didn't get it.
Yeah, we
It's-
reviewed the mail that we received.
Yeah.
Today, we haven't received that.
That check.
So,
Okay.
yeah, we haven't received it.
You haven't received it, but you did receive the other one because it was brought down physically.
As soon as we got back from holidays, there was prompt payments. There's no history here. The council gets that. Good history. There's no issues on our end.
Okay, thanks.
Other comments? Sorry, Councillor Busk.
Just gonna make a motion.
Yeah.
The council directs administration to waive the taxes owing on the account 10678.10 in the amount of 1839.06.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ingo. We'll see you later. Okay, we've got minutes of our previous meeting on page 18 in our package. Any issues with them? Going once, correct, Councillor Brando.
I move that we accept the meeting minutes of September 7th as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, we get the committee of the whole minutes on page 30 in our package. Any issues, any concerns, any changes? Anyone want to play? Councillor King?
Make a motion that we accept the committee of the whole meeting minutes from September 14th.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. CEO update, Mr. Schmidt.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. Tonight's report will start with general administration. So last week, administration reviewed the updated guidelines set out by the province surrounding COVID-19. Some of those guidelines have been further expanded upon over the weekend. We sent out communications to the public about the service impact on some of our facilities, as well as our operating procedures for the immediate future. Administration continues to review the provincial guidelines and will adjust our operations as needed. We'll also be attending a Q&A session around the new guidelines hosted tomorrow. And another big event this week is there'll be a signing ceremony held at the Legacy Center to formalize our new regional partnership with some of the surrounding towns, MDs, and First Nations communities. This is a milestone for our region by engaging our communities, connecting people, and and resources to seek opportunities and address solutions with a regional insight. And so that'll be this Thursday at the Legacy Center. On to health and safety. There was one reported near miss between September 12th and September 18th. As of the current date of this update, all workers are reporting healthy. Due to the current health crisis, updated COVID-19 protocols and safe work practices were reintroduced at all town work sites on September 20th. This also included internal contact tracing that we had started throughout the pandemic. We reinitiated that. On to finance. So with the general uptick in COVID in the region, the town office has been closed to the general public and only accessible via appointment only. Moving on to projects. So we had some good news on that. We were able to hire a private utility locator. So we were having issues getting somebody from the one call to come out. We did end up finding somebody. They were out yesterday and today, and should be finished by tomorrow or Thursday morning at the latest to do all the utility locations that for each of our projects here, so that we can continue on with those projects and get them going. The other one was the water line relocation. That's not on this. So that last week we had the company out there. They did their initial assessment. So that's been complete, and now we're just awaiting the results, and that will inform us of where we can drill the line across the creek. So that's at the Sugar Park there. For fire services, so all fire practices at the fire station have been canceled for the foreseeable future. They are also implementing protocols for call, small groups, and increased cleaning of vehicles and equipment. Same thing with operations and the utility department. So prior to even this, when they saw an uptick, we reverted back to some of our previous measures by keeping our teams small and also separated, so that we can reduce the risk of exposure within the town staff. On to community services for aquatics. So the instructors did a great job of adjusting to the new COVID restrictions being implemented partway through the week. Most of the pool's private rentals have decided to cancel their bookings until COVID restrictions ease up. On a positive note, we've hired 3 additional new staff members in the last week, 2 junior guards and 1 junior aquatic instructor. For recreation and programming, so we continue to work with our user groups to implement the new restrictions that were announced last week. PD day camps will still move ahead, but other programming and team sport drop-ins are paused for the moment. We will be looking at alternative programming opportunities that can be implemented within the restrictions, mostly based on individual and family programs. And we've begun reaching out to upcoming rentals to discuss their options. And that concludes my update.
Sorry, questions from council. Councilor Ferguson.
So a question about Rennie Hall Plaza. So I see the demolition is happening. Are we still on track to have the project completed this year? I know frost is coming, and there's timelines with cement and all that. So
yeah, with the so I have to give props to the project manager. He's done an excellent job on locating a company to get a utility locator up, which was realistically the thing that was keeping us back. Now that that's completed and we have those people on site and they know where the lines are, and there are quite a few out there to know about and work around. And so removal should start right away here, and we still expect to complete the projects on time.
the full project.
The full project.
Perfect. Thank you.
Other questions, Councilor Gramick?
Question with our facilities. Can you give the general public an idea on when new rules from the town would come out that fit within the government's current guidelines?
That's part of the
Discussion upcoming.
part of the discussion here for Business Horizon. We can review that.
Other questions, Councilor McGregor?
We have a Northern Star open house scheduled tomorrow. Do we know if that is still a go, and what will that look like for public, or is it just for council?
That we'll have to review.
My understanding is it's still a go, and my understanding
Yeah.
is that it is designed for the public. Council included, but it is not a private council function. It is designed for people that want to know more about what's going on at the project, as council has asked, to have more public consultation, so.
It's not a social gathering. It should still be under the guidelines for 1/3 capacity for the building, so we should still be able to go ahead and continue business.
Roland, could I get you to make sure that that hits the communication things tomorrow, maybe with a little explanation of what's going on and for people to come?
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Going once, going twice. Okay, so wading through some paper here. Let's jump into business arising, COVID-19 public health actions. So this is kind of supposed to be just a bit of a verbal discussion, although we got lots of paper here to sort through and some information as well. And so I appreciate administration being able to speak to this. And so what happened is, of course, on Thursday, we get information that the world is changing yet again and new regulations have come out. And so I appreciate that our administration has had a difficult time sorting through that. I know that one of the things that was on council's radar last time some of this happened, how it impacted our recreation facilities, was that council wanted to understand what decisions we were making and why. And so I asked for a verbal discussion of that tonight to understand that. So we're all on the same page as we move forward, understand where we're at today and where we're going. And so kind of leave it open at that. So I guess, Roland, you did send an email out to council, but I want to, if you could take a sec to reiterate and say, what does the world look like today and where are we heading? And then we can get in any questions and kind of go from there.
So the world looking today is still ever evolving just because of the drip of information. Again, a lot of the, we did a lot of work behind the scenes before these official CMHO order number 42 and 43, which we included tonight. That's not in the agenda package that came out from the province, I guess, after the weekend. And so we can just kind of go over where we're sitting now as we're still reviewing additional information as this is ongoing. But I can give you, we're not trying to change direction as fast as possible. We want to keep rowing the boat at a steady pace here, something that's manageable, something that everybody can understand. So just a little bit of, where we came from.
Sorry, Roland, just before we get into that, I want to make this clear because there's a bunch of information floating around on social media and councils have been getting lots of phone calls and do whatever. People have the misinterpretation that council's debating whether we are going to be talking about vaccination protocols for the entire town. We're just talking about operationally what we're allowed to do because the province in the last round of restrictions, whether you're a business or whether you're a municipality, is basically giving you some options and you have to pick from those options. And so that's what we're talking about tonight is the different options that exist within our town facilities.
Yes.
Okay.
So upon reviewing the announcement last week, we did have a mostly all day discussion about the best way forward for the town. And some of those things and so we chose not to do the restriction and exemption program after having looked at all of the information at the time when it came out. And part of that reason is we wanted to take a similar approach on the entire town facility. We wanted to have one clear direction so it was at least consistent across the board, that it was easy to understand, as easy as it could be to understand. And also we needed something that we could actually implement properly and safely with the staff and resources that we have on hand. And so that's why we took the direction that we did take. Over at the pool there, so they still had some staffing shortages. So we did have 3 additional hires to alleviate a little bit of that. Part of the issue there is even under the restriction exemption program, we'd still have to operate with limited capacity just due to the amount of staff we have. So it really doesn't make sense. Regardless, even if we did operate it, we'd still be under limited capacity for people to come into the building because there's just a limited amount of lifeguards that we have available to watch the pool safely. On the MRC side of things, so given that it's mainly our younger persons that are supposed to police and operate and run this program, we felt that there was inadequate time to train them and properly resource our staff over there. So we needed more time to look at the rules as they are changing here and additional guidelines are coming forward on the best way forward to be able to do that safely and appropriately. Again, so the one issue too, again, was the ability to access the health records. So that issue has been alleviated on Sunday, but at the time on Thursday and Friday, that again was a general concern. However, that's still a piece of the puzzle there where I can't tell a staff to take a look at a health record when we haven't even had the time to sit down with them to properly train them on exactly what it is that they should be looking at and what exactly they should be doing around that. And so that's kind of where we had ended up on the weekend. We didn't want to completely close the facilities. We tried our best to create a program that would continue to keep our staff safe, continue to keep the people inside the building safe, and still continue to function at some level. And not enrolling in the program right away, I think was the right choice to make, as there was still more information coming that we'll have to disseminate this week so that if we do choose to go a different direction, that we actually have some proper protocols, training, and resources in place. On that though too, one of the challenges with acquiring additional resources is we already have challenges hiring for positions that we currently have running. And if we have to go out and look for some type of other support, I don't see that happening in a timely manner to be able to give our staff adequate additional support to roll the program out. Some of the other, again, issues and guidelines on there as well. So with the requirements for the restrictions exemption program too outlined from the province of Alberta that some people may or not know. So just to highlight on here, operators participating in the REP must maintain a written plan that outlines the processes and requirements of the program. Staff need to be trained on the plan, including the processes and steps to protect personal information. This should include training for staff, information for clientele, a written plan for auditing purposes, and policies for what to do if individuals are non-compliant. So given that we only had 2 days to actually implement something like this, the decision was made, we simply haven't had the time or resources to actually implement this safely and properly as per the guidelines that the province has listed out for us.
Okay.
I think a couple other.
Just turn on your mic there, Jill. There you go. It's
Okay,
on.
sorry, I've never used the mic before. I think a couple other things to just add to what Roland said with all of this is that our biggest user group, this would significantly impact at the MRC. And there's still unclear direction as to, and I know everyone has different interpretations even out in the province as to if we were to implement this for even for youth sports, if then above 12-year-olds would be required to have vaccinations, it would eliminate a bunch of the coaching ability. If you implement this too, it's an all or not kind of thing. Right now, we can implement it partially for some of our adult user groups because adult user groups can't go forward without this program in place. But if they're acting as a rental, they can implement it themselves. So that's why we've chosen this. But it's not like we could implement it for some programs and not for others, because I know that has been suggested to us that we take that approach, but it's an all or nothing. If we decide to implement it, it's for all of the things within the building, not just pick and choose as to what you do. So I think that's part of our hesitancy to move forward with it at this point in time. There's still way too much gray area to figure out how it's going to impact our users that we can work with right now.
Okay. And so to be clear, so we understand where we're at today and why, what is the intention in the future?
So given that we just got these CMH orders this week, so we are having another discussion tomorrow. There is that provincial update that should hopefully give us a a discussion at the table for a Q&A with the province to hopefully maybe clarify some of our issues. So that's what our intention is. So that's tomorrow from 12:30 to 1:30. So at this time, we would like to go to that session, gather some more information, have additional time to meet as a group again to go over these orders, and then we'll be having a administration meeting tomorrow afternoon to review the updated guidelines and all of the new information that we've received, I guess, just in the last 2 days here. So right now, the plan is to follow what we're doing because it has worked in the past. Our staff know how to implement safe restrictions. We have the safe work practices that we implemented before. It is in the best interest for the town to be able to run the facility properly, that we implement something that the staff know how to do, and give us time to further, seek some legal advice on the program itself, as that is also a requirement set out by the government before moving forward with anything else, and also give administration a chance to more deeply dive into some of these decision or orders that have come out.
Okay.
I think, sorry, as we move ahead too, we would do some more clarification with things. There's a lot of misconceptions out in the community as to how this program is operating. Adult sports can't, like, there is no option but for adult sports to opt into this program. I had someone contact me today wanting to know why I would force it on them. It's not an option. If you want to have rec hockey or old timers or Kodiaks go ahead in our facility, they have to implement this program. They can implement it on their own as a renter of our facility, just like Susan's Kitchen. They rent a space within the facility, but they would be responsible for implementing. We have given our instructors that are running courses the option of running as a rental and implementing the program themselves, and they have chosen not to. They don't feel that it's their responsibility to check medical records. And I know there's a comment made that it's unfair that we would put the onus on them, but at this, everyone wants us to be the bad guy, so it's kind of difficult for us at this point in time. We have to go back and clarify youth sport. There's been a lot of people out there that want to operate under the premise of bringing their kids for a birthday party or a private rental, operating under the premise that they're a youth sport. So to comment back to the community that we would be defining that better and putting out a little bit more clarification about things after we go to the Q&A. And I don't think I've even told Roland this, but I know Alberta Recreation and Parks Association is trying to set up one of their town hall meetings as well with all their groups, but they haven't been able to get in touch with the government yet. So they've asked us to send along our top 3 questions, and they'll bring them forward and hopefully have answers for us. I think for me, the big holdup right now is how it impacts youth sports. If we implement it, are we driving out those kids that aren't vaccinated and those coaches that are supporting those things?
Okay. We got a bunch of questions.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Councillor Graham.
I just want to clarify, Dr. Hinshaw made it clear today, 18 and under do not have to be vaccinated.
But yeah, we don't know. That's not, and it's one thing for her to clarify, but when the public health order doesn't state it, that's where we get into this huge thing. And she might say that and it might come out tomorrow, but at this point in time, this is the information that we have.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson and Councillor King.
So to clarify, if I heard you correctly, you are allowing individual user groups to implement the restrictions exemption program at their own discretion.
Yes.
And then they would be in charge of managing and facilitating it, not the town or the town staff.
They are, in a sense, they would have to provide us with a written plan of how they're going to implement it. And it would go back to how we were operating previously when there was restrictions in place that they would have to sign off that if they or go against the plan that we have a compliance matrix. So if they're not following the plan, that there's, first warning, first time they get a written letter, then they lose ice time so that they have to pay for it, and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so then the onus would be on that user group then?
Yes, and it would be, even if we implement it, it would be up to them in a sense to do it. That's how we operate our facility for user groups always, that any health and safety things that apply to them is on them. Ultimately, we are accountable to them for things because we operate the facility, but we always put health and safety and insurance and all that back to the users. So.
Okay, so to be clear, then a group can institute their own REP, even if that's not what we're doing within our facility from a facility
If
standpoint.
they're an organized group, so that's what we have to define. Now we're starting to have people that are coming and either self-identifying as a youth group or wanting to put in the REP. So, and we're not opposed to that, but they need to make sure that we have a user agreement signed with them, that they have insurance, that they have a plan in place as to how they're going to implement this.
Okay, so, but to be clear, because I feel like I got to make 87 notes while we're doing this here. So an organized group can do their own REP, and that doesn't matter if they're adult or youth, or only for youth?
Correct. No, it says that. And I've given everyone, all of our user groups, I've given the option
So to be clear, tomorrow, a group that is an organized group, but we don't have a definition on what organized group is yet,
we would come up with a definition.
Okay.
Yeah.
then can institute their own REP.
If we, if they sign a user group agreement and provide us with insurance.
Okay, Councillor King.
I was just going to give thanks to the staff for taking the time to get this right. I think the information is changing literally daily. And I don't think the general public realize how much is part of these programs in the background. And it does take a lot of work, and we are short-staffed right now. So to get this right is really important. And I appreciate you guys recognizing that and taking the time, going on the call tomorrow before we make any of these decisions.
Okay, Councillor Busk.
So if, let's say, rec hockey institutes this program, it's for the participants only, or is it for their fans as well?
It could be for their fans. That's up to, and that's what the discussion is that we've had with them, is that they would have to decide and they would have to manage. So if they decided that they didn't want to manage the stands, we go back to how we were last fall and we lock the doors and no one can go in and spectate if they don't want to manage it.
Okay. Okay, so right now, today, what can happen is if I'm an organized group, to be determined what that is, whether I'm adult or youth, doesn't matter. I have the ability to go do an RAP tomorrow.
Correct. We couldn't be able to implement it tomorrow because they'd have to
Within
go
reason,
the plan.
'cause they
But
have
in
to,
theory,
they have to bring a documented plan.
we could
Okay.
work with that.
And in the event that theoretically we are not pursuing an REP, because that's really not what we're doing at the moment, then the option is that we have to limit that the participants. Okay, so let's start, because you get two groups. One is like an individual booking, and the other one is an organized group. So organized group, minor hockey is a prime example. So minor hockey tomorrow can still operate the way they have, but they have to wear masks inside the facility.
And they can only have a third capacity in the stands.
A third capacity in the stands, and all those people have to be masked as well.
Yes. They don't have to have
They don't
their
have to
shots.
have-
They're supposed to, in the stands as well, sit individually or in their family unit and maintain 2 meters distance.
Okay, Councillor Gramack, sorry.
Is there I understand you're waiting for groups and organizations and a big meeting tomorrow. Is there something for individuals?
Individuals and families can still drop in as in the past. So
But you couldn't have 8 random individuals, or you couldn't play basketball, pickleball,
No,
volleyball.
you book a court. So at the MRC, how it's working, because there's 2 kind of ways. The MRC, you book a court. So either your family or you book a court, or we're taking a maximum of 6 people on the track. We have kept some public skate times that we're capping at 10 people, that you can come individually or with your family, just because it's a financial barrier to rent the ice for some families, as well as that's what we're doing at the pool. The pool's taking a limited number in the pool for individuals and families, again, because renting the pool is a.
But it has to be family then. And
Has to be family, and then they're monitoring that. So most of our users have family accounts as well, so it's easier.
is there a plan in place then for individuals that aren't family? There's seniors that want to play sports?
Well, seniors can come and play sports, but I know this has been feedback as well. Seniors can come play sports, like husband and wife come play pickleball, but
So there's no groups outside of a household?
No.
Unless they get insurance and stored in organization, which is not fair to the users at all.
Okay. Councillor Ferguson.
So just some clarification on the guidelines though. So like, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So it says for those participating on one-on-one activities, that they're exempt from the program. So like if somebody wanted to go in there and play badminton with their buddy who's not from the same household.
One-on-one is defined. So this is where this time they haven't come out with the definitions of youth sport. And I mean, we know this because we've been through it, but one-on-one activity is defined as one-on-one with a certified personal trainer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilor McGregor.
Play here. So I'm gonna echo, this is not your guys' first time down this road. It's not your guys' first time with getting information on a Thursday and then different on a Saturday morning and then different on a Monday afternoon and then different on a Tuesday evening. It's not your first time you've had to deal with ignorant Facebook comments, posts, and personal beliefs. So on behalf of myself, thank you for that. It's going to take a little time to work through this and get through this. I'm confident in the staff that we have right now that have helped us in the last 18 months that you will do what keeps your staff safe and what keeps our community safe and what keeps our community thriving. You will never please everyone. And we are going in a backwards direction. So please continue to go forward. Take your time. Do what you see necessary. Get rid of your Facebook. Do what you need to do because we are not going to please everyone. We are not going to please the hockey players, the pickleball players, the rec hockey people. Never. Now we can wait until tomorrow, when you're able to ask some of these questions. If some of these fellow counselors have questions, you could add that to your list. You can report back to the public as staff and make sure that you do your job. That is not my job to report back. That is yours. And I have full confidence in the staff that we have here right now that you will do a great job. So thank you and continue doing on the changes daily what you need to make sure everyone is safe and healthy.
Okay.
And I think with all of this, we have to find a balance. I know it seems not fair to put some of these adult things moving forward, but it also isn't fair to put out one of our biggest user groups or three of our biggest user groups. We have to find that balance, I think, is the hard thing. And that's what we spent most of the day debating last week is how are we can't make everyone happy and how are we going to find that balance? Adults have the option to come on their own. Kids can't use our facility on their own.
Agreed. And so I will say that, part of the reason we're having this discussion is because some of the council members that are here had talked to previously about they were upset with how some of these restrictions were handled and we didn't understand them. So I thought it was important to have that discussion today. I know that we've got a number of people that have reached out to us over the weekend because everybody's interpretation of this is different. And I'll be the first to say, the province continues to throw crap at us and we're supposed to figure it out. We're supposed to deal with it. And so literally, in my business hat there or whatever else, I'm phoning trying to understand how this happens on Thursday. I've got people phoning me about funerals on Friday, looking for information. I'm talking to the health inspector and he's like, we get the information the same time as you get the information. We got about 187 questions that we send back to the ministry looking for some direction. And I think it's frustrating all around. And that would be problematic if it was our first day of COVID. But after 19 months, I think everyone just fed up and everybody's done, right? Problem is COVID's not done. So things are a lot more political than they used to be. Like, I don't know how many people sent me this article about Black Falls down in Alberta. They stood up to the province, and they're not bringing an REP program and they're not in favor of vaccines and making a very big political thing, but realistically they're doing exactly what we were doing right now, in the sense that they're just saying, hey, we're not rolling out an REP right now. Obviously they've made it a little bit more political than that, but that's what we're talking about here today. And so I just want to make sure that I got the right information. I got to be honest, my number one goal is to say, how do we do this safely and still have the most flexibility and use that we can get? Because, we design these facilities for people to use them. And I can tell you now more than ever, I think people need things like this to do. So I just want to understand how some of that works. So one of the things there, it talks about youth activity and it says, like, if it's a youth activity, then they're exempt from an REP, correct?
That's what it says. But there's still a lot of gray areas around that.
But in their definition that came out today, it says that youth activity means any physical activity, performance activity, or recreational activity youth are participating in.
Yes.
So theoretically, that could mean a private booking, right? Because that's just youth activity. So that would be one of the questions I would ask tomorrow to get some clarification around.
It is, but I think that based on, I mean, again, every time's different, but based on how this is written and our experience in the past, what they're discouraging is public gatherings, like gatherings. So if you're having a bunch of kids get together for a birthday party, and why they've gone to organized sport is because they have a governing body that's overseeing them.
Right.
So if you're just throwing a bunch of 7, 8-year-olds together with a parent that doesn't care in a birthday party in our facility, it creates a really big problem. So we definitely can go back to definitions of that. But I think that that's something from our end, just as protecting ourselves and our staff too. That's something that we as a facility can implement rules as well. And I think that's something that we've discussed. And I know the pool is a concern, is that if we have people that don't believe that COVID exists, whether, everyone's personal opinions is different, but if we have someone coming and bringing an unlimited number of kids to our facility with no measures in place, it creates a big problem for us and our staff. So
realistically, the most flexibility that we can provide is the current system, with the exception of these private bookings and
which is
adult,
individuals and families only.
Right. And adult organized sports at this point.
Adult organized sports that participate in the restriction exemption program.
Okay. So, and if we were to go to an REP tomorrow, what that would mean is, our current interpretation would mean that we would further inhibit the amount of groups that could participate.
In essence, yes, because while youth themselves are exempt, we don't know if coaches, officials, I don't know if any of that's exempt, because that doesn't make sense to implement our, not that any of this makes sense, I'll make that comment too, but it wouldn't make sense in my mind to implement an REP where you're encouraging people to be vaccinated and then taking away the requirement to have masks on those people and then putting them with youth. That doesn't seem to jive, but.
Okay. So lots to wade through.
Yeah. So, and it's not to say that we can't look at this, but we definitely, and I think the big thing for me, and Roland has said this, and I'll just reiterate it, we are short staffed. We are not able to do what we're doing now. So to implement this would be, because basically the way it's written right now is you'd have to have someone stand at the door and only be a security guard essentially.
Okay. Question for you.
Yeah.
Can we quantify that? So when we say that we're short staffed, how many vacant positions are at the MRC right now? Just so council is aware.
Sean's looking for 3 additional staff in his area.
Okay. 3 for facilities. Okay.
3 for facilities. We've created, so we're down 1 spot until Jamie Norberg returns from mat leave, because we merged 2 spots together.
Okay.
And then we're still short staffed by 3 over there. And just to give you guys an idea.
So 3 basically on frontline MRC
and
staff.
back. And to give you guys an idea of what we're dealing with, just as a point of interest, we tried to schedule 4 interviews last week and not a single one showed up.
Okay.
And we also decided this year not to hire the parks summer students and instead contract that out. And part of that too, with the parks crew, sometimes there's some overlap during this time where there's some shared duties or some additional people on hand to take a look at that. So that's.
Okay. So to be clear, we're short 3 or short 6 at the MRC?
6 altogether.
6 altogether. Okay. And how many are we short at the pool?
Pardon?
How many short at the pool?
I'm not 100% sure. But I know for sure 1 full-time, they have another person leaving at the moment. One of their staff that works full-time hours is their last day is October 7th. So. Okay.
And we had some problematic logistical issues with the pool in the sense that theoretically that is not our building. And so we have to work with the college to understand what their process is and their interpretation.
Yeah.
So that one is an ongoing discussion that we'll have behind the scenes with the facility operator and work that out.
Okay. So what we do in the pool might be different than what we end up doing at the rest of our facilities.
We like to try and stay consistent, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, we haven't, I've reached out to the Northern Lakes College and just said, hey, you know, we'd like to work together on this. We definitely want to know what your intention is and, you know, work together on a game plan as to how that entire, you know, what that looks like. Obviously, it's their facility. We do manage and oversee the pool, and that's kind of our portion there, but there is a common entrance, and we definitely want to work together to make it all work for everybody.
Okay.
And so just to reiterate some of that stuff too. So yeah, with the youth group or with, you know, youth activities and all these activities where we're looking to some of that, really the intention and past ones, and I still believe in this one, is that group centered, you know, recognized organized group activities are still kind of a go. And if you fall without that realm, it looks like you're not underneath these mandates. And even in the interim, if that's not the case, we have reverted back to those restrictions because we know how to implement that and we've implemented it before. So that is a plan that staff know how to do. We know how to limit people and family members to keep them safe, to actually keep the facility open and running. So that is, you know, outside of the restrictions here,
And it does
it's a safe game plan for the town to do.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I just,
Go for it, Jill.
youth activities are defined. And so youth activities are allowed to go, but in the public health order, youth activities mean any physical performance or recreational youth activity. So it's not like a birthday party.
Okay.
So,
Councilor Gromlin.
I can rent it for a group of kids, or it still has to be through minor hockey?
You'd have to be through minor hockey. You could bring your family, but you can't. And only your family that lives at the same address, not grandma and grandpa and all that kind of stuff.
So we're going with organized, just so I'm not joking, I have over 50 phone
No,
calls
I'm sure.
about this, sure. It's organized group. There's no, I can't rent it for my kids' hockey team. They can't all just go because I rented it. They have to be through minor hockey to go.
Yeah, and minor hockey has supported us in
Yeah,
that
I just
decision.
want to get
Yeah.
it all out there so I know everything.
So right now though, adult rec hockey cannot go, correct?
They can if they
If they do an REP.
Yeah, and in talking to Mike Martin, he is interested in doing that. So we're working with him to figure out what that
Right now,
means.
user groups, you'll work through the rest of the hoopla, but right now, user
Yeah.
groups.
And I'm right now minor, like soccer, adult soccer drop-in operates as a drop-in program, but I am going to approach them to see, and it would be different than we work with them to see how that we can make that work for them.
Okay, Councilor Busk and then Councilor McGregor.
So the officials that are needed for these sports, they all fall under the entity that is doing it, like minor hockey or rec hockey, or how does that work?
I don't know. That's what we need clarification on.
Okay, Councilor McGregor.
For the community that is in touch with counselors, what would be the proper protocol for them if they have questions as a community member as to what our facility updates are? How would we go about explaining that tonight where they can go for proper information?
I'm not sure when, but sometime in the next 2 days. I'm also, covering for Gary, and our program coordinator is on vacation as well. So sometime in the next 2 days, I plan to get something, like we'll work with Roland and get something to Jordan to get out on Facebook and our website with some definitions. And hopefully at that point in time too, we have some clear ideas of what's going on from the province level.
I think, I won't say 2 days, let's just, at least to the end of the week. We do need more time to, again, go to the Q&A tomorrow, hopefully get some questions answered, still meet, and then have time to craft an appropriate, more defined, clear guidelines. So again, our approach here, in absence of having, 2 days to actually put something together, we had to implement something that we could do, so.
Okay.
More information is coming. We are working on that, but we need additional time to actually ourselves get clarity, and then we can provide more stuff. So on a case-by-case basis, or if you have questions, we can reach out to the Community Services Department and we'll assist as best as possible, but it is ongoing.
And it ultimately, this is the conversation we've had all along with this. These are our facilities. That's fine that that's your interpretation of the rules, but these are our facilities, and we obviously we want to make reasonable restriction or rules and guidelines. But if just because this is your interpretation doesn't mean that we're going to change our rules to match that. So
Fair enough. Valid point. Any other questions, comments? And just giving these guys, I get that this is a stressful and frustrating time for all of us, and staff capacity continues to be an issue within our organization. And so I would say from council that we encourage you to use whatever ideas that you have, or, feel free to come to council if you have ideas that are outside of the norm to fill that, because the only way we do move forward, and I think everybody wants to move forward in life here, is that you have to resource a problem and add capacity. So encourage you to not be afraid to seek help from council to make that happen. So, and I encourage you and everybody out there, take deep breaths. Nothing is going to get figured out overnight. And, it is unfortunate that it continues to be, the message from the province is the messages come late, the messages come suddenly, and now it's not even clear anymore what they're supposed to be. We're supposed to figure it all out. And I think that only adds to the frustration and adds to the just like mental breakdown of I don't want to deal with this anymore. And it's unfortunate that we, it keeps falling down, and now businesses, our staff, whether it's municipalities, are forced in these very political decisions to figure out what to do. And I don't think that that's right. I don't think it's appropriate, and I don't think that's good governance, but that's a whole nother discussion for another day. I'd entertain a motion to accept this as information. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Next one, correspondence from Big Stone Medical, letter of support. Councillor McGregor, you're going to dig into that one.
No, and I have re-emailed yesterday and today with no response. So we can just table it again until I get a response.
Okay, motion to table the Big Stone Medical letter support request to the next council meeting. And then Councillor McGregor, I guess we'll check with you when you do the agenda if you've got feedback at that point. Sorry, Councillor Busk, you're making that motion. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, jump into Mayor's Corner. To Councillor McGregor's point there, earlier, the Northern Star open house is tomorrow night at 7:00 at the Northern Star, and I encourage residents to go take a peek in that box and see what that's going on. I got a number of calls after our last meeting to say, I understand they're building a homeless shelter on Main Street, and that's not exactly what's happening. And so they have a very unique proposal there of something that doesn't exist in Slave Lake, and realistically doesn't exist much in rural Alberta. But they want to try something. So I think it has an impact on the community. There's some positives and there's potentially some negatives, but I think as a community member, I would encourage you to go take a look at that and provide any feedback. Regional partnership, it really sucks that we're in the situation with COVID right now, because it's a huge thing. 5 municipalities, 5 First Nations have agreed on a governance protocol of working together in the spirit of, when we work together, we accomplish more than doing it on our own. The group wants to learn from each other. It's an opportunity to build trust and respect. And if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be having parades, because this has never even been done in Canada before to this scale. The document's going to be signed off at the Legacy Center on Thursday. I think it's a huge monumental thing, but it just gets overshadowed by the issues with COVID and the fact that we can't get many people in a room. We can't do a whole lot with it, but I'm excited that the partners still want to forge forward and get that done and set a strong foundation for future councils to work through that. So I think it's a huge thing, and I appreciate all the members there that are involved in doing that. I also want a big thank you to our administration as well as administration from all 10 groups, largely though the MD of Big Lakes and MD of Opportunity and the town of Slave Lake have been some of the big champions on the mid side behind the scenes, and I appreciate you guys doing the work there to carry through and get a lot of that stuff done. Obviously nomination day was yesterday, which is exciting. The biggest thing in an election that any candidate always wants to know is who's all running. And so now that we hit that milestone and seen that there's lots of people running, I think it's great that lots of residents will have choice. And I think it's very interesting as a candidate myself there. What does campaigns look like when you have that many people? Do people get bogged down on social media? The comfort level of people with door knocking and coming around and stuff is pretty hit or miss. And so it'll be interesting to see how this campaign is so much different than other campaigns that are out there. Carnival. Geez, let's talk about a carnival. So my phone blew up today and lots of comments and questions there about how come the town's letting a carnival come to town. And so misinformation about that, and let's get that one clear. So first off, if a business or an event wants to exist in the town of Slave Lake, there's a process that has to go through. Planning and development has a process. You fill out the forms, you go through, and if you meet all the requirements and that's allowed in that zone and so on and so forth, that stuff doesn't really come to council. It's something that's done administratively. And this one, obviously, the biggest issue with the carnival coming to town today is the fact that our COVID numbers are the highest that they've ever been. Saw a slight reduction today for the first little bit here in a while, which is exciting, but still, 3 times what we've seen, 2.5 times what we've seen in our highest ones previously in last November. But I will say that, when it comes to those health restrictions, what is allowed and what is not allowed, what is enforced and not is enforced, that's Alberta Health Services, and they have to get permission from Alberta Health Services to do it. And so, the question is moving forward in times like this, do we amend the process that these things have to come to council, or how does that work? I'll save that discussion for another day. But the reason that they don't is because council should not be debating what each and every single business and every single event comes. They provide guidelines so administrators can work through some of that stuff. The example I always use is that, Councillor Ferguson and I probably don't want 10 more pizza places to come to town, but if they operate within all the guidelines and they can do that, they should be able to do that. It shouldn't be up to us to decide if they can come or not. And so I will say, though, that I think it is quite frustrating that this organization, this business feels that the timing is adequate and that this is an opportunity to do it, because I think the timing is questionable at best. I will say too, another big thing that our council really hasn't pumped at much here, but will happen next week and before our next council meeting, National Truth and Reconciliation Day and a federal holiday. It's been a very mixed review from different organizations and provinces and municipalities about whether they recognize it or not. I want to say that I'm very proud that our council made a motion to recognize it as a stat thing, and to take it even further, to say that, we want to build it as a staff component, that if we're not learning from the experience, learning what it's about, then what's the point? So really excited that council took that. And I think that's all I got for right now. So at this point, I'd entertain a motion to move into closed session to do with other 3 outstanding items. Thank you, Councillor Busk. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried.